When you think of fascism before World War II, you mostly think of Germany and Italy, maybe Spain, but that's not quite right. In the 1920s and 1930s, fascism was fashionable and almost created a global fascist surge. Fascism becomes a thing when Mussolini rises to be de facto dictator of Italy with his flamboyant, bombastic new form of authoritarianism in the 1920s. This then influences many other ideologies that could be considered fascist, like National Socialism and a whole slew of different movements. According to some, even Stalinism, which at the time was referred to as Red Fascism by many other communists. Fascism is a heavily charged term often used, or rather abused, to frame any country, political organization, or business that holds power. The expression has been subject to inflation in a way that's not really usable in a constructive manner anymore. As political scientist Robert Paxton put it, everyone is sure they know what fascism is. A chauvinist demagogue haranguing an ecstatic crowd, disciplined ranks of marching youths, colored shirted militants beating up members of some demonized minority, surprise invasions at dawn, and fit soldiers sparring through a captured city. But fascism is, of course, more. And when you dig into it, some lowest common denominators define fascism beyond that, let's say, purely aesthetic definition. Again, we turn to Robert Paxton. Fascism may be defined as a political behavior marked by obsessive preoccupation with community decline, humiliation, or victimhood, and by compensatory cults of unity, energy, and purity, in which a mass-based party of committed national militants working in uneasy but effective collaboration with traditional elites abandon democratic liberties and pursues with redemptive violence and without ethical or legal restraint goals of internal cleansing and external expansion. As I opened, the first truly fascist movement fulfilling Paxton's definition is Mussolini's Italian Fascist Party that arrives in the aftermath of World War I. But a lot of his inspiration comes from three French thinkers and activists. The first is French General Georges Boulanger in the 1880s. His Boulangism is a fiercely nationalistic and populist reaction meant to pull conservatives into a more extreme movement. They want revanche against Germany for the loss in the Franco-Prussian War and a restoration of the French monarchy. They want the anarchist and socialist threat to social organization dealt with decisively. They seek a return to law and order and an imagined greater glory of the past. Despite being monarchist, the Boulangist movement rekindles the sentiments of patriotism, egalitarianism, and popular vigilance. Boulanger does so by tapping into a deeply rooted French sentiment of revolution in times of dissatisfaction. And Boulangism soon wins a massive following. But to make a long story short, his movement flounders when he gets embroiled in some extremely salacious sex scandals. It can well be argued that Boulanger was the founding father of the first far-right populist mass movement in modern politics. Mussolini's more left-wing ideas are influenced by another Frenchman, the political thinker Georges Sorel and his Sorelianism. He seeks a revolution of the proletariat driven by union action, which becomes known as syndicalism. But the central part of Sorelianism that Mussolini picks up is the power of myth. Sorel argues that a shared story, regardless if it is based on lies, falsehoods, or myths, is crucial in uniting a group of people into a movement. This belief in the power of myth and his strong anti-democratic opinions also influence another thinker. He will, in turn, eventually attract Sorel himself and Mussolini to abandon their leftist ideology of egalitarianism for a reactionary, hierarchical worldview. He is Charles Maurras, the father of integral nationalism. Maurras believes in militarism. He has a belief in ethnic assertion coupled with outspoken xenophobia and a deeply rooted anti-Marxism. But he also believes that some aspects of socialism are useful, or as he puts it, socialism, liberated from democratic and cosmopolitan elements, fits nationalism as well as a well-made glove fits a beautiful hand. Mauras's strong pro-Catholic and anti-Semitic views gained popularity in France in parallel with the Dreyfus affair, the case in which Alfred Dreyfus, a French Jewish officer, is wrongfully tried and convicted for treason. Dreyfus is prejudged as guilty because he is a Jew and from Alsace, hence more or less German anyway. The trial and Maurasian thought bring about the creation of the first really proto-fascist movement, Action Française, which will develop a staunchly reactionary, racist, and anti-Semitic form of nationalism and have a significant impact on a certain Adolf Hitler's thinking.
Anger, fear, aggression. The dark side of the force, easily they flow, quick to join you in a fight. If once you start down the dark path, forever will it dominate your destiny. Consume you it will.
And it is Germany that provides the fertile ground for the reactionary components of fascism to develop into Nazism. Just like communism requires an industrialized society, fascism requires a modernized society in a modern nation state. Nations with a sizable portion of people fed up with what they see as the hypocritical and decadent liberal democracies of modern Europe that arose just before and after World War I. Here, fascism seeks a national rebirth. As the 1920s progress, it looks like Germany's on the path to genuinely modern society. Democracy with universal suffrage, civil liberties, a mass media boom, mass consumption, cult of the automobile, vibrant youth culture, changing moral standards, all aspects of the German golden 20s. But the country is also wrought with political strife between extremes, a fractured parliament unable to rule effectively, economic hardship for many parts of society, eroding classical values, and perhaps most significant, a widespread and shared national myth. It is the stab in the back conspiracy that Germany was not genuinely defeated in World War I and is being dealt an unfair blow through the effects of actually losing that war, which they definitely did. And in this divided society, this myth is seized upon in true Sorelian manner to whip up a movement of catastrophic proportions. See, the Nazis imagined that the German race is embroiled in a secret war with Zionism. Thus, they transpose all of the things they see as corrupt, derelict, and decadent in society to the Jewish faith. They even blame the imagined stab in the back on the Jews. Those Jews who make up less than 1% of the German population, who are by no means especially dominant, and many of whom are secular Jews, and all of whom are relatively well integrated as Germans. But following Sorel's thoughts, the realism for accuracy of a shared vision doesn't matter much as long as it can unite the troops. Following Mauras's lead, the Nazi movement is also extremely anti-Marxist, and yet they recruit large parts of their militants from socialist revolutionaries. In yet another anti-Semitic masterstroke, the Nazis have also managed to channel existing anti-capitalist emotion into hatred of the Jews. They have equated Judaism with banking and capitalism. It is with this rhetoric, it sounds vaguely socialist, but is in fact only racist and anti-Semitic, that they have made themselves a haven for disenfranchised socialist militants and thugs.